So I've built a lot of simple garden beds over the years, but I've never really built a cute little garden planter box thing like the ones that are getting super popular on YouTube. So today I built something like this. This is my first attempt to prototype how well the wood glue holds up. I want to know if the materials are right, if it's the best design before I start batch building them. So that's what you're going to see me do today is build a prototype. Let's do it.
Welcome back to another build. So starting out today by milling down some poplar that I had laying around. I wanted to make some space and use it. The piece originally was about 1 inch thick, so I stood it up on end, ran it through the table saw, and got it down to a little over 3/8. So we're milling these boards down to a final width of 3/8. They're starting to look pretty good. So the planter that I'm going to make today is based off of a couple videos that I've been watching. Those guys mostly were using fence pickets, which is a great way to go. I didn't have any on hand. I didn't feel like driving to the store, and I had material to use. So I'm trying out some 3/8 inch poplar here. That's the main difference between this build and the build you see here. So I'll put a list on screen of what exactly I'm going to cut on the miter saw, but I'm marking out 4 boards at 11 inches, 4 boards at 9 3/4 inches, and 4 boards at 13 inches. Some of these are going to later get ripped down into smaller strips. You'll see me doing that in just a bit. And then others are going to stay the size that they are now, the same width. So let's take the miter saw out. Mine is an old Delta. It works fine, but yeah, you may notice it's missing the blade cover. Not too happy about that, but I am super careful about it at the same time. It's using that first cut as a template for my others to make sure that they are all the same length. So let's get all of those cut over here, and then we will make our way over to the table saw. So the smart thing to do here would be to stack the boards whenever possible, and probably to set up a stop block to get your measurements right for every single cut. If I were batch building these, and I do plan to, I would definitely set up a stop block, and I would definitely be stacking these boards, probably 3, 4 on top of one another to make a bunch of cuts at once and save a bunch of time, and get all your cuts exactly the same. Also, I'd probably upgrade my miter saw, so yeah, that's probably coming. I need a proper miter station so I can make these cuts faster. So there you have it. Everything all cut up lengthwise anyway. 4 boards at 9 3/4, 4 boards at 11, 4 boards at 13 inches. So now we're going to take our 13-inch long pieces. 2 of them we are going to rip into 1 1/4 inch strips, and hopefully your pieces are wide enough to get 8 of them. Otherwise, you might need to bring in some additional material like I did. Yeah, my starting piece wasn't wide enough. I guess not quite as wide as a fence picket, so I screwed up there, but I was able to take one of my offcuts over to the miter saw, get it back to 13 inches, and then get all the strips I needed that way. Okay, with everything cut to size, it's time for assembly. So I'm going to practice lining these up. We have 2 different glue ups that we're doing, 2 times each, before we make the final assembly. So here we go. This is the first type of glue up we're doing, where you just take your 13-inch strips that have been cut to 1 1/4 inches. And you're going to go ahead and place them on 2 of your 11-inch pieces so that they square up on the edges like you see here. I don't know what I was thinking with the glue here. I guess I didn't think I needed to glue all the way down for some reason, but anyhow, get a little more on there, and here's what the first glue up is going to look like. Do your best to get these nice and flush so that you can assemble this more easily later. So I didn't have a brad nailer this day. After this day, I ordered a brad nailer because I could sense how quickly that thing was going to pay for itself if I was going to make more of these. So my next video, I'll be nailing these together, and the whole assembly will go much, much faster. So right now I'm using clamps to get this all glued up. It's looking pretty good. You want to add enough wood glue, and an exterior grade wood glue, by the way, so like Titebond 3 or something similar. You want to add enough so that you're seeing some squeeze out. That will be a good sign that you've added enough. I'm going to rely on wood glue heavily for this process. With this build, honestly, I'm testing a couple different things. I want to know, will Type-On 3 actually hold up outdoors? And I want to know, will 3/8 inch material work instead of 5/8 inch material? My plan is to paint this with exterior paint. It's worked really well for me in my garden beds, keeping them year after year from decaying, so I'm hoping it'll work the same for a flower planter. So now, taking my panel that is in the process of drying and using it to mark off where I need to place glue for this other type of glue up that I'm doing, the other type of panel. So you'll see I'm flushing the glue up itself over to the edge and then marking the inside of that. So basically you're mocking up the fit of the two panels and drawing where the other ones need to sit. So we're going to do our best to take our 9 3/4 inch long pieces and butt them up to these lines that we just drew. We're going to try to get this as accurate as possible. This is one of the parts of the process where a brad nailer would really help you because you could just fasten this immediately. I tried to go with the good old 25-pound weight on top for the glue up instead of fussing with all these clamps, but no dice. My workbench isn't flat enough to get good contact, and I had gaps. So I ended up going to the clamps again for this. And yeah, this is probably one of those areas you're going to lose accuracy without the brad nailer, because with spring clamps like this, the piece can definitely slide. All in all, these turned out pretty well, but just a heads up. So you can see we got some good squeeze out here. We're going to make sure to clean that, especially on this side, because that is the exterior side of the panel. We want to keep the wood glue off of there. We're going to paint this one anyway, so it doesn't matter all that much. You can see we used every clamp in the shop to glue up another two panels here. Here's a finished product. So here's the first type of panel that you saw us glue up. It's looking pretty clean. I'm happy about it, especially for using spring clamps. And the other type of glue up on the bottom, looking pretty accurate as well. It should definitely assemble easily enough for us. Okay, so now I'm just mocking this fit up. I actually did this part while I was waiting for the other two panels to dry. But here I'm being sure to pre-drill before I put in my 1 5/8 inch exterior screws. I wanted to minimize the amount of hardware that's used in this build to keep costs down. So I figure 4 solid length exterior screws really should be enough to hold these panels together. They're not very big, but that's going to be another part of learning from this prototype that I'm building. I'm going to refine this design as I make it more and more. I'm going to make it more easily. I'm going to make it more accurately, but there are some things I need to learn about the longevity of a planter like this outside, with soil in it, with water making constant contact. So for now, we're basically gonna, I want to see where that fail threshold is. I want to see if these panels pop off of the long glue up. I want to see if these screws fail. I don't think they will. Exterior screws are really solid, especially if you pre-drill them. Another reason to pre-drill, though, like I am in the video, you do not want to split these small pieces at all. So I'm just holding this square in every now and again, making sure that this is butting up to relatively square. I was accurate enough in my glue ups, even with the spring clamps, so that just holding these pieces together, it is very, very close to square. This is finally starting to look like something. Being careful with my impact driver here, not to impact and split these. I don't mind that these screws are hanging out a little bit. These have rounded edges. They're kind of meant to do this as an exterior screw. I don't feel any need to countersink them on this. You can, if you want to hit a higher, as like one of the ways to fancy this up, you could countersink those screws, but I'm not going to bother with it. Okay, lost the footage for the last 2 holes there, but no big deal. Now it's time to cut our trim pieces. So we're going to take the remaining 1 1/4 inch strips that we have, and we are going to cut 45-degree miters on either end. We're going to try to leave the long side of this at 13 inches or as close as possible. and this should fit fine as long as we're pretty close. So this is the part of the process where, man, I really needed a brad nailer. I ended up pounding this in with finish nails just because I was getting tired of trying to hold things in place. There are definitely ways to do this better than you're watching me do it right now. So warning, warning, this is not the best way. Brad nailer would be great. Flipping the project upside down and drawing lines on where these mitered pieces should sit exactly would benefit you. Mine is askew, I can tell. I'm sure other people will tell when I point it out, but overall, it still looks nice. I'm not too bummed about it. Brad nailer would really help, though, to like as soon as the piece is in the right spot, boom, shoot it in. So you can see this part was really finicky. Definitely one of the more time-consuming parts of this project. I think if you wanted to, you could essentially make a picture frame and then stick it on top all as one piece. So like get it all glued up or screwed up or whatever, and then as one piece drop it on as a lid, you know, rather than going piece by piece like I did. But at least my miters seem tight, which is kind of funny because my saw is not very accurate. It was right about this part in the process where I pulled out my phone and ordered a brad nailer. So here the piece is upside down. I'm going to have to, you could leave the piece here and be done with it. You could sell them as is. Some people just let the pots kind of hang onto the edge, but other people will want a bottom in these and to rest the pot there or to actually fill this with dirt. So I've taken two offcuts and cut them to length again, and they're just going to catch these little brackets that you see me gluing in right here. I had to wait for this glue up again because I didn't have a brad nailer. Another thing to slow me down, right? But those little strips are actually offcuts in themselves from when I was ripping the other strips to size. So you can see we have two little lips there. We're going to throw a generous amount of Type Bond 3 on there, and we're going to put our little offcut pieces cut to length down there, trying to leave some gaps, intentionally trying to leave gaps so that water can just roll on through. My 10-pound weight fit in here perfectly. I was pretty happy about that.
All right, so this thing's looking pretty decent, I think. It could be neater in some spots, but I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. So I'm going to take some spray paint, some white spray paint that I have laying around real quick. You can find this at any box store. I'm not really using anything particularly fancy, just this Rust-Oleum that claims it's good for indoor and outdoor. So we're going to go ahead and get one coat on now. The trick with spray paint is don't try to do it all in one coat. It dries really quickly, especially on a hot day like today. So just get some on there and plan on filling in the gaps with the second coat. So there's one coat on there now. Let's go ahead and put a second coat on and make this look a little more solid looking. Alright, so we found some fake roses for demonstration purposes. I hope you guys like this build. Consider tossing this video a like if you did, and consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more stuff like this. Cool. Till next time. Peace.